Can a computer ever be 100% secure? In this presentation, I will talk about the factors affecting today's society from software to the physical side, but also teaching you how to protect yourself from them. Hackers can use a number of ways to manipulate people and steal data online. Things from the software side, like Trojan horses, which are a piece of malware that pretends to be something harmless and potentially beneficial to the user, but is actually something malicious and is stealing stuff in the background. On the physical side, there is things such as social engineering, which can be like tailgating, which is where you follow someone who does have authorized access into the building, where you're trying to get into to steal data or potentially cripple a company. To finish things off, I'm going to tell you how to mitigate some of the effects of these, like having a VPN or an up-to-date antivirus software to protect yourself from malware and potentially having your data stolen. The research methods for these projects that I used was intentionally going to be an interview mainly with a company called Raytheon UK, which is used to develop missiles and program missiles on where they need to go and what they need to do. Unfortunately, they had to cancel due to the unforeseen circumstances, which is COVID-19. But they said that they were very sorry and they did want to be in there. They did want to offer me the information I needed. So unfortunately, my project is mainly research-based, but I did manage to find some online stories to use in my essay. To start off with the software-based attacks, we look at injections. There are many types of injection-based attacks, but the main one I focused on was SQL injections, also known as structured query language injections. The structured query language is used to communicate with databases. Although this sounds very harmless, it can be used in ways to manipulate databases to get personal information out. This can be very devastating on big websites, and which is why it needs to be protected against. There are many types of SQL injections, such as time-based SQL injections, which is waiting for a certain time for a vulnerability to show itself. So then you can type snippets of SQL injection that will then provide you with data that should not be allowed to access, but will come up as an error message. As well as there being SQL injection, there are other types of code-based injection and just injections in general that can be used to cause full system compromise and data to be stolen. An example of this would be code injection, which injects an application code which can execute operating system commands as the user is running web applications. This type of attack can be very, very devastating, as it can lead to a full system compromise. The second biggest thing in my essay is Trojan horses. I found this topic to be one of the most interesting and one of the most devastating things in cybersecurity. A Trojan horse, as I previously stated, is a piece of malware that pretends to be something that it's not and is intentionally doing something harmful in the background. As I found out during my research, there are many types of Trojan horses, such as a download Trojan. This is a Trojan targets your already infected computer and downloads new versions of malware that your computer may not have. This can be used to steal information, cause full system compromise, and potentially infect all the computers on your network. Also, following on from Trojans, I did some more research into bigger Trojans, also known as Zeus or Zbot. This was a form of Trojan that was originally used to target Microsoft Windows to create a botnet. A botnet is a series of infected computers with bots that all link up together to cause harm or to steal data or potentially do things that you don't want to be done on your computer. It was first detected in 2007 and since then has become one of the most successful Trojan horses ever to be created. It is now used to steal personal information and financial data while also still uploading malware onto infected computers. It can now run on anything from BlackBerry devices and Android devices, as well as being able to infect Windows computers. Moving on to physical attacks, which is social engineering. Software-based attacks can be very devastating if they are performed correctly. However, social engineering is a lot easier to perform and can be much more crippling to a user that doesn't know anything about them. Social engineering has many forms, but potentially one of the biggest is phishing and baiting emails. Phishing and baiting emails are emails that can pretend the hacker will pretend to be someone that they are not, such as maybe the police or a business offering you something that looks very promising, or maybe just trying to get your information in the form of being your bank. They will do this to get your information to then exploit it in a way that you may not want your information to be exploited, such as like stealing your bank information to commit fraudulent crimes, or just pretending to be used to commit identity theft. These problems can be massive. There was a case reported on Curbs on Security that was an attack that involved a Chinese letter and a CD. Government officials were sent a Chinese letter that they weren't able to understand. So when it came with the CD, all they would do was put the CD into something that would read it, and it would infect their device with malware. This infected several computers and was crippling financially and security-wise. Building on from that, identity theft can be a major security flaw in social engineering and can result from phishing and baiting emails. So identity theft is when you have your identity stolen to use in crimes, or just to buy stuff off the black market, for example, that the person using your identity would not want themselves to be committed for this crime. There was a case in 1994 where a woman had a letter through from government officials saying that her 12-year-old son's taxes had already been filed. This is because his social security number had been leaked, and a hacker had used it to pay for his own taxes. So now he is still struggling with trying to file for things such as loans, and having lots of money problems due to this, because, well, it is said he has already got his taxes filed. So, keyloggers are another big type of malware that is malware that can be used and installed via social engineering. Keyloggers are something that spies on you by either looking directly at you or using keyboard inputs and recognizing what you've pressed to steal passwords, usernames, and financial information. An example of this is a story that happened with Xbox when they first released their Xbox Ones in 2014, where their Kinect was actually spying on you, where the cameras were actually recording your conversations you were having with your family to further develop their AI. This is not only a crime, but it was addressed, and they lost a lot of money from it. And it's said that other big companies such as Amazon and Google are all doing the same thing to further develop their AIs. The final side of social engineering I would like to talk about is tailgating. Tailgating can be one of the most devastating social engineering attacks if performed correctly. Tailgating is the act of following someone into a building that they have access to that you don't have access to, that they do have access to, in order to steal personal information, or just maybe cause system compromise to their building. And it is one of the biggest cyber crimes ever to be committed if performed correctly. Finally, the ways to protect yourself online. There are many ways to protect yourself online, but some of the main ones include having an antivirus software that is always up to date. The antivirus software needs to be always up to date, as every day new malware is being developed and there are new vulnerabilities being leaked every single day. So antivirus software needs to be up to date to be able to mitigate these flaws and help protect yourself from malware. Another big thing is when connected to a public Wi-Fi, having a VPN, a virtual private network installed, can let you have a secure connection to a server elsewhere, so no one will be able to access your information if they are trying to over a open network. The biggest way to protect yourself from SQL injections, there are two ways. There are blacklisting characters that are unable to be put into an input box on a website or just a database in general. So there's only specific characters that are allowed to go in there, because certain SQL injection snippets need certain bits of code, certain keywords, certain phrases to be put in. So blacklisting and whitelisting these set of characters is a very efficient way of not letting anybody access your data via SQL injections. Finally, having a secure password is a very key and easy way to protect yourself, as if you have passwords such as QWERTY or password1, it is very easily guessed, and it's just very, very insecure. So if you have a mixture of letters, numbers, colors, symbols, anything like that, it will allow you to protect yourself easier from attacks like password-based attacks. So in conclusion, I feel like there is a lot of threats and more will arise as we further develop our cyber world. So I believe that a computer will never be 100% secure, but as we can protect ourselves from malware and vulnerabilities now, there will always be the next big thing that will come out that we need to protect ourselves against. There will always be that next step that we need to take to help stay safe online and protect the general public from cybercrime. During my project, I have learned many things on top of my cyber knowledge. I have gained a developing of the basic skills such as writing essays, planning, timekeeping, research skills, communication and organization to keep my project on track. I feel like this project just hasn't helped me in terms of my knowledge base on cybersecurity and other malwares and things like that. It's helped me develop my focus and concentration, as I am very easy to get sidetracked and distracted by the littlest things. But I wanted this project to be as developed and of interest as it could be. So this required a lot of time and effort and focus. So using all these skills at first was a bit tricky, as there were certain knowledge-based subjects such as SQL that was a pain to get my head around, and developing a Gantt chart was also very, very difficult to start with. I overcame these obstacles for what I believe to be a very well-developed project, and yeah, thank you for listening. And are there any questions?
Right, Charlie, good, well done. Right, some people would say that a computer can never be 100% secure because of human weakness. What are your thoughts on that?
Human weakness can be a very, very big flaw in cybersecurity. If I use phishing emails, for example, it was human error, because if you don't realize that you don't know the source that the email is coming from, you should always check that you know where the email is coming from before you reply to it or send information, because banks will never contact you via email and asking for information. So it is human error to give your personal information out via emails that you don't know the actual source to. As much as I say it can be human error, older generations might fall for this a lot more easily, as they have less of an understanding in the cyber world than someone younger may.
Yeah, so I mean, we can develop all the sort of anti-malware software, antivirus software and everything, you know, if people still will be potentially that one weak link that that could mean that we can never be 100% secure on a computer because of us.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got AI to throw into the mix there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So how did your research go? Obviously, you know, you were planning on speaking to people. So how did it go with not being able to do those kinds of things?
At first, I really struggled with my planning because I didn't intentionally know what areas of cybersecurity I wanted to go into. So my research and like developing a research project was very difficult to begin. But once I kind of streamlined and found out what I actually wanted to develop my project on, it became easier and easier as I went. So I originally intended to do an interview, as I've previously stated, but as it got cancelled, that took a crippling effect to my work, because I had defined an amount of time and a big section of my project to this interview, as it was a big company, and I was able to get a lot of quotes and things from them, a lot of information from them. But now my research just was purely knowledge based, so it may be a bit knowledge heavy, but that is because I couldn't switch out for my previous intended interview. That would have been more speech wise and potentially more kind of stories into the cyber world. But I think overall my research went very well considering the circumstances, and I think I got some good stories that I made sure to find out were actually legitimate before I actually included them in my essay.
Right, so obviously you had to do lots of internet-based research.
Yeah.
That was really everything, wasn't it? That was internet-based. So when you were doing your research, how did you sort of kind of make sure that the sources maybe that you were going to use in your essay were reliable and you were confident that the information was accurate?
I made sure to find out like whether it was like the website was a known fake news source, as like things such as Wikipedia I avoided at all costs, because anyone can upload and type whatever they want onto it. So I avoided stuff like that, but I tried to find real life stories that I knew were legit. So this came from sources such as like the BBC News, just news sources in general that I knew were legitimate, and avoiding websites that maybe looked a little bit shady or didn't have like the lockup in the corner to say that they were secure, as I just wanted to avoid any kind of lies in my essay.
So what would you say were your strengths throughout the EPQ then?
My strengths definitely came from certain topics, certain research topics. As things like social engineering, like phishing and baiting emails, I already had developed understanding on that. It was just pretty much finding stories that would fit with my essay, that would actually work and flow. This also went the same for Trojan. I decided to do a big section on Trojan, as I already had a basic understanding on ZooSpot and Zbot, on what it actually was and who it actually targeted. So it was just easy for me to build a further understanding and get a well-developed answer in my essay.
Yeah. What about more sort of general skills, would you say? What were you sort of in terms of, I don't know, organising yourself, etc.? What sort of, how did that go?
I think once I had the Gantt chart done, it was easy for me to follow. I was very time managed once that was done. The biggest struggle for me was getting it done, the Gantt chart done. But once it was done, it was very easy. My time was very managed. I knew what I needed to do when certain things needed to be done by, when certain parts of the project needed to be due, and when it needed to be sent off to where it needed to be sent off. And it allowed me to time manage my time properly, so I could focus on not only the project but my social life and my actual A levels themselves.
So what would you say was the sort of the most significant thing that you found out
in terms of cybersecurity? I personally believe that Trojan horses are the biggest threat that I research, as they may seem very small to the average user or people that know how to protect themselves against it. But to someone that has no clue what they are and are just trying to maybe like download free music or access a website or just browse the internet in general, they can be very devastating. As you can click on one link and think that it's just nothing, but in fact it could install something that you're not too nobody's going to be keen on. It could take information, your credit card information, and it could leave you crippled for a long time and potentially take significant amount of money, and that can leave you financially crippled for a long time.
Yeah. So do you think doing this EPQ, how's that going to help you with the future, with your future?
I personally would like to go into the cyber world when I finally finish my A-levels and potentially go into like a computer science uni course. So I feel like having this understanding in cybersecurity and just the cyber world in general will help me in the future, as I will be able to just call upon the knowledge I've learned now in my future jobs and studies. I believe.
Lovely. Okay, Charlie, well done. We'll call it a day there then.
All right. Cheers, sir.
Ollie, you can stop recording.